This is Dr. Mike. Today I'm going to be doing a book review on a book by David Shenk entitled The Genius in All of Us. Now, the reason why I love this book is because it talks about the concept of talent, um, and it talks about how genes really don't influence or determine our ability to be successful. Now, we've kind of covered some of the concepts on talent development and success in prior books. But what I like about this book is the fact that Mr. Shank talks about genes or GXE. And what that is gene times or the multiplication of genes and environment. And he talks about how genes and environment, along with traits and proteins, all of these things work together in a dynamic format to influence trait formation. But the reality is, your genes, they're never going to really dictate what traits will express themselves for you. Okay. And then the other thing that he also makes the argument about is the fact that while genes influence, they don't determine success or failure. And he talks about in the book different people like Mozart, Yo-Yo Ma, Beethoven. He talks about these individuals and how in the beginning of their lives, they weren't necessarily amazing artists or creators, but over time, they became better and better and better through continuous improvement. Now, the point that the book is getting at is that we are never to look at our intelligence as something that's fixed or as something that's determined by how we're born or where we're born. But we do need to recognize that genes can express themselves through the environment and many other different things that relate to the genes that express themselves and make us who we are. But what we are and who we are isn't really fixed. We have the ability to become something more, regardless of circumstances or situations. Now, one of the things that I really like is that he talks about what are the keys to finding greatness. And he states that number one, you have to find something that motivates you. So you got to find that one thing that gives you that excitement or that fire. Number two, you have to be your toughest critic. So being your toughest critic means not avoiding being critical about your progress or being critical about just how well you are at something because you can't get better, you can't improve if you're too afraid to be your own worst critic. Number three, he says, beware of the dark side. So what you want to do is to get past failure and begin to embrace failure and view it as a means to helping you to move forward towards developing yourself. So number four is to identify your limitations. So your limitations, he says, you need to identify them, but then ignore them. And that's because the reality is this: every one of us has perceived limitations, but at some point you will be able to go above and beyond those limitations once you have developed the skills, the knowledge, or the know-how that's required for you to move past that stage of learning. The fifth thing he says is to learn to delay gratification. I think this is a huge area where we have the biggest problem because many of us, we want greatness, but we don't want to go through the pain to become great. So we don't want to sacrifice or delay gratification. And if you look at the research on a lot of great individuals, it took years for them to really develop their craft so that they could be at a higher level of consciousness and understanding of their skill sets. Now, he also talks about having heroes. Now, I always talk about the concept of heroes and why this is important with students and with those that I coach. And here's the reason why. What we find as great or admirable in others is the fact that they have a trait or some specific skill or characteristic about themselves that we really want in ourselves. And so it's great to emulate those that are already great. So find someone that you can look up to, so to speak, or look at. And then the last thing he talks about is finding a mentor. And K. Anders Ericsson talks about how deliberate practice requires finding a mentor. And the reality is, since the beginning of time, mentors have always been around to help kings become great, to help individuals reach a higher level of success in their fields or to develop expertise. So, one of the biggest things that you can do is find a mentor to help you to go further. Now, what I also like about the book is he talks about the idea of intelligence being a process. And he also talks about talent as a process. So the reality is this: we have to change the way that we think about our genes. The fact of the matter is we can turn them on and turn them off. They can express themselves in different ways, and we can use that to our advantage. And the way to switch them on or off is how we condition ourselves and the types of environments we put ourselves in and the types of pressures that we choose to experience. So we have to choose how we want to live. And greatness is really a process of continuous improvement and continuous work. So here's the bottom line. What he's getting at is this. He's just simply telling us in this book that if you want to be great, you got to work at it. That is the secret. If you want to be great, you got to work at it. So here's the book, The Genius in All of Us. Check it out, and I hope that you read it. Have a great day. Bye bye.